being in the tournament. Then we'll go to questions. Jim, please.
Well, we're happy to be here. This team has worked very, very hard this year, and we're excited to be in the tournament and to be playing a team like Dayton that, obviously tremendous basketball team. We have an experience with them 2 years ago, how good they are, and then I think they won one of the toughest conferences this year in the country. So we have tremendous respect for them and just how good they are.
Questions right here in the second row, number 1.
You said you've watched Dayton play, 8 times this season. Do you seek out, their games, and do you kind of ever think about?
I just watch the games that are on. They've been on a number of times, so I saw them early in the year. And of course, we've now seen tapes and everything, and so we have a good understanding of how good they are.
Do you ever think about the game 2 years ago when you're watching them, especially since they have a lot of those, the same guys on their roster?
No, I don't. Not too much. No, not when I'm watching. No.
Right-hand side, Jim.
Coach, hi, Marty Smith from ESPN. Good morning. Why was this the happiest you've ever been on Selection Sunday?
Well, because 31 times we were in the tournament before the Selection Sunday came. There's 4 other times that we were on the bubble and we didn't make it in any of the 4. So this was the first time that we were on the so-called bubble that we actually made it. And so that was one of the reasons. And then I think this team is really, it's obviously been a difficult year for them to go through everything that's happened. And then we had the unbelievable start really to our year, which is, why we got in the tournament, that we won a tournament with 6 teams that are in the NCAA tournament, and 2, Connecticut and Texas A&M. Obviously, Connecticut won their tournament at the end of the year, and Texas A&M went to overtime in their tournament. So we had 2 neutral site wins early, and then to go to Duke and win. So this team has proven that they can play well at a very high level away from home, and I think that is something that can make a good tournament team. But I think that just the idea that we hadn't made it before was big, and then for this team, what they had to fight through this year and start 0-4 in the league. You have to go to Miami and Pittsburgh, and then you got North Carolina in your first 4 games. So it was not a great way to start. They had a difficult schedule to start, and then they had to end up at North Carolina and at Florida State their last 2 games. So it was a very, very difficult schedule. We are the only team in the league that played the top 5 teams on the road. We were at North Carolina, at Virginia, at Louisville, at Pittsburgh, at Miami, and at North Carolina.
During those 9 games you were absent, I wonder what you may have learned about yourself or about the NCAA or your program or life.
Well, I learned that it's not fun sitting home for 32 days when you haven't been able to plan it. So it's a good lesson for retirement. Make sure you have a plan. Obviously I didn't have a plan for 32 days. I mean, the plans that were talked to me, or people told me, Jay Billis and Sean McDonough, good friends of mine, we'll go play golf. Well, how can you go play golf when your team's getting beat by 10, 15 points someplace? I don't think that's a good picture to put in the paper, which I'm sure they would. Jim Boeheim playing golf and his team's losing. So there was never an alternative that you could do. There was nothing. I thought about it for, the 6 months ahead of time. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And there is nothing. You sit home, you watch the games. Nobody really wanted to watch them with me. I guarantee you that. And I now realize what fans do when I always laugh at them, that you're yelling at the television. That's what you do when you're not there. And so it was difficult, and I got to go see my kids play a little bit more, but I usually get to see their games anyway. But I got, I think, a couple extra games in.
Jim Paul Doherty, Cincinnati Enquirer. Would you mind discussing the advantages to playing a zone defense, especially in a tournament format, the quick turnaround and the possibility that teams have not seen you play zone?
If your defense is good, it helps you in tournaments. And it doesn't matter what defense you play. Everybody now sees zone. Dayton, we've got miles of tape on them playing against a zone. So they've seen a zone. I think sometimes during the regular season, you'll play a game and the team has played 6 straight games against man-to-man, all. And now they've got 2 days to prepare for you and they're playing against your zone. Well, that's not what happens here. Dayton plays against zone all year, and they've had 5 days, 6 days, whatever, 5 days, I guess, to prepare to play against us. So it's not, if our zone is good, then it'll help us. But any defense is good, it'll help you. So the turnaround is slightly easier in terms of the other team is not used to playing against it, and they only have a day. But most teams in this tournament that are going to have a chance to play us will be practicing against the zone during the week, this week. So it's I don't know if it's really that big of an advantage. You know, I hope it is, but we really can't
Left hand,
prove that. Some teams have come out and shot great against us in tournaments. I think it helps us in the preseason tournaments because you're playing back to back to back. I think there it probably does help you. And we've won a lot of those tournaments, a lot. So we haven't won a lot of NCAA tournaments, but it's a little bit harder.
left-hand side.
Hi, Coach. Talked about, getting in from the bubble. Given last year's postseason ban, did that feel kind of vindicating? And kind of, with the benefit of hindsight, do you feel like self-imposing the ban last year was the right call?
Well, it was the right call, but not for that reason. I mean, we didn't do it because, well, we might not make. When we did the ban, we were 14-7, better than we were this year. So there was, and we won 18 games, and we narrowly lost a couple games at the end of the year. So we could have made it last year if we'd have gone to the tournament and done something. We certainly could have. We had great wins last year. We beat Louisville. We won at Notre Dame. We had some other wins. But the misconception is that you don't have to take this ban. You can wait. I don't know where the media gets that from. There is no waiting. When you feel that you're going to be out of the tournament, you don't say, well, we're going to just wait a year. You have to make that decision. It turned out to be beneficial because we might not have made it last year, and we did make it this year. And the other reason that I wanted to take the ban, and I thought it was the right move, is there was only 2 months left, a month and a half left. We only had one senior last year, and he had played in 3 tournaments and won Final Four. The 2 other seniors we had were coming back. So we only really took it away from one guy, and it turned out we didn't take it away from him anyway because he wouldn't have gone, but he had been 3 times. So it was, and the other thing is, 1 month knowing you're not going to the tournament is one thing. To sit in Syracuse and for 10 months know we're not going to the tournament next year, that would not have been good. So there's a lot of reasons. It's not just that part. It really overriding reason is if you're going to take it, you got to take it. You can't just wait. But all those other factors that I just talked about all play into it a little bit as well.
We have 5 minutes to go. We have a question here, right and back, and there. Go.
Jim, how have you seen Frank Howard evolve over the season, and how ready is he to receive the minutes he's been receiving lately in the NCAA tournament?
Good question. Next question. I don't know. Some involvement.
On the side.
Jim, right here, Tom Archdeacon from Dayton. Alan Griffin is a guy you've really embraced. I mean, he played for you, he was on your staff, and you helped him get the job at Dayton. Well, what is it about this guy?
I love Alan Griffin. He's the best. I mean, he's rooting for Dayton, trust me, but there's a little part of him inside it's got orange. Don't worry, you know that. He's the most unique thing. Alan Griffin started as a sophomore and did pretty good. Had a pretty good year. His junior year, I sat him. I started somebody else, And that normally is transfer or, I hate you, I'm not going to ever do anything for you. He worked right through it and ended up contributing, making a big contribution that year after that. And he's one of the best I've ever had. And when I knew there was an opening, I called Arch. I said, this is a guy, that would be an absolute great coach for you. And I think he has been. I think he's one of the best ever.
Hey, Jim, Dan Wolken, USA Today. When you talk about it being a difficult year for your players, how difficult was it for Mike Hopkins to, sort of be put in that situation? And do you think that what he went through will benefit him?
Oh, yeah.
down the line?
It was a tremendous benefit. And when you analyze it, the 2-day window we had wasn't enough. We were trying to prepare a little bit because we were thinking, okay, and when we hadn't heard from him, we're thinking, well, it's going to be the first 9 games of the conference. We had no reason to think otherwise. So we had prepared actually a little bit. I'd had him do some meetings and do a little bit more in practice and things. But when it hit like that and we had 2 days, the team could not adjust to that. They really couldn't. And we didn't play well at Georgetown and St. John. We just didn't. They didn't play anywhere near like they had played. And it wasn't so much that Mike did something wrong. There was nothing he could have done. John couldn't have done anything. But then he got it going. They started to play. They played very well. They won some difficult home games. They went to Miami and Pittsburgh and played well. They played really well, and they played really well against Clemson. They had the game won. Clemson's good. So it wasn't the 2 days they didn't play well, 2 games. But after that, they played just as well as if I'd have been there. But you can't, even that said, he's got a different style. He's going to coach a different way. He'll use some of the same things, but differently. So you can't judge what he did in that situation as to what kind of coach he's going to be. I think he's going to be a better coach than me someday, but not in that situation. And if it had been the opposite and I was assistant taking over, it just isn't going to work. It's different. I do things differently and have a different voice than he has. He will be very successful, but it took a couple games, and it wasn't a good situation. We were too fragile. We were right on the borderline, and we were on the borderline when I came back. I mean, we won a couple, but we were at home. We did have a great win at Duke, but Mike, that was just one of those things. But we played a little better, but we didn't really play great. But we had the only 2 bad games we had were the first 2. They didn't adjust quickly to that. That was the difference, really. But he's a tremendous coach, and it'll help him because it's different. It's different being the head coach. I mean, I went through it. My first year, you do some things, and you look back on them, and that wasn't very good, But, we all make mistakes, I just don't come in after the game and say, well, I lost this game. Because in reality, no one guy, no one player, one coach loses the game. I think people want you to come in and say that, well, I should have done that. Well, there's a lot of things you do. You do 100 things during the game. You can do 90 right, and you might put this one guy in, he misses 4 shots. It's not a mistake. It's just something that you tried and didn't work. But
We have time for one more question right here.
Mike Waters, Syracuse Media Group. Going back to last year's postseason ban, how did that impact you? And what did you do last year while the tournament was going on? Did you have a chance to do some TV work and turn it down, or?
no, I don't even, really, I mean, we've always had the league tournament. We've always had the NIT. We've been in a tournament every year except the one, and won one of those years. So I think it was because it turned out that we didn't play great at the end of the year. It wasn't a killer that you couldn't go to the tournament because you probably weren't going to get in. It would have been nice to go to the league tournament. It would have been nice to play in the NIT, but it just didn't happen. So you just kind of moved on. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Best of luck.